So when I see my patients, they've just come in from being totally, usually independent, working, driving, parenting, being a spouse, a friend, whatever, living their life. And now they're in the hospital and they've lost a significant amount of function. And it's stuff that, is half the body. It's an arm that can't move. It's a leg that won't work. It's, speech that doesn't sound clear, words that don't come out. And so it's obviously understandable and part of the rehab process, which is to identify what's lost. My job is to really be able to point out what they still have. So I'm able to sort of stop them when things are getting really rough and say, let's take a deep breath. And it's usually something they can do. Or let's listen to some music, because hearing is typically well preserved. And so it's sort of saying, what is a preserved function that you still have? And how can we use that right now to get you through this tough time?
Thank you from my heart, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you from my heart, from the bottom of my heart.
Welcome to the Gratitude Podcast on www.georgianbenta.com, where you'll hear a new story each week that will inspire more gratitude in your own life. Our mission is to inspire 100,000 people to discover how to feel gratitude and live a happy life through the amazing life stories of our successful guests and their actionable tips. And now, the host of our podcast, Georgian Benta.
Hi, Gratitude Seeker. Welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. With me today, I have Lauren Schwabish. Keeping a daily digital gratitude journal for the past 5 years has greatly benefited her mental health. As a speech pathologist working with people with neurological injuries, she frequently recommends such a journal as part of their recovery. Also, as a mother and wife, she frequently reflects on past entries as to promote the nightly habit of reflection and gratitude with her family. She is here with us to share how gratitude has impacted her life and the life of her patients. And it's from a very interesting point of view, and I think that it will be very, very interesting for all of us. Lauren, welcome to the Gratitude Podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm really glad to have you here, and let us know a little bit about your work. What do you actually do? Because we've talked a little bit about this in the beginning, and I have read a little bit about what it means, but when you explained it, it made so much more sense.
Sure. So I am a speech language pathologist. That's a job that not a lot of people know what it is. Or if they've heard of a speech therapist, they often think about it with little kids who can't say, certain sounds. And that is one kind of speech pathologist. I am a medical speech pathologist, and I work in a hospital setting. So my job is to help people rehabilitate from neurological injuries. And that could mean a brain injury from a fall or a car crash, a stroke, which is a big part of the population that I treat, or people who've had a brain tumor that's either there or been removed surgically, in addition to progressive neurological diseases like Parkinson's disease and other things like that. So they come into the hospital and I evaluate them, and I'm essentially looking at how well they communicate. So are they understood? Is their speech clear? Are they using the words that they need to express their thoughts and their feelings? A big part of what I do is helping people with their thinking skills, because all of those conditions can affect your memory and your problem solving and your awareness of what's going on. And then a good chunk of it is helping people to start eating again, because a lot of these can impact your swallowing. So I help people with that. So really restoring those extremely basic functions that people need to be independent and successful in life.
Yeah, what I love about what you're doing is that instead of you being feeling down about having to do this, because I'm sure that sometimes it can get really rough and it can get really hard to work in this environment, you actually choose to be grateful. And let us know a little bit about your experience with your patients.
Sure. It's a great point. And I think a lot of people in healthcare will relate the same thing. You know, we go home and we tell our friends and our families about the day that we had and the situations that our patients are in. And they say, oh my God, that's so depressing. How are you not like crying all the time? And the fact of the matter is it's sad. Of course, we're devastated for these individuals, but you have to have a positive mindset in order to help them get through it. And being able to recognize not just what's wrong, but what's still there, what abilities are still working for them, and being able to highlight those and take advantage of those is super important in the rehab world. So it really helps to have that perspective.
Wow. And I love the fact that you keep a gratitude journal, and you have done so for 5 years. I think this is amazing consistency. And I think it's something that we should all strive for, because it's actually a great metaphor for our life in general. The fact that you deal with all kinds of situations every day, the fact that you keep a positive habit like this going, it actually helps you influence them in a positive way as well. And that's very important, because for some you might be their only chance, and for some you can actually make a huge impact. And I'm sure that you've impacted many people. Can you tell us a few examples of this type?
Sure. The gratitude journal for me has been, transformative in all aspects of my life. And technology is really to thank for it, because I get an email at the end of my day, 8:00, and it says, how was your day? And what did you do today? And here's what you wrote yesterday. And here's what you wrote a year ago. And I love seeing sort of the trends of, especially as I'm looking back at years past, things that I tend to do seasonally, things that people that I get together with. And so for my patients, when I tell them about this, I highlight my experience, which is to say, it's very nice to sit down at the end of the day and think about what did I accomplish today, which is so crucial for people who are making these, gains back in these basic functions. You want them to focus on what they have and what's getting better. It's also important for them to be able to write. Language is, not just spoken, but obviously written. And so for them to be able to work on those language skills in a different way is extremely important. And also for memories, how gratifying to be able to look back and say, oh my gosh, a week ago or a month ago, I couldn't do this, or this is what I was focused on. And now, here I am, and things are so much better, or, this is still an issue for me. What can I do to get through it? So it's the act of kind of be able to record your progress in certain ways. That's really meaningful. And especially for people with memory impairments, it's just a nice way to kind of hang on to a day that might have had something great about it, but they can't necessarily store it internally.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you mentioned something about your discussions with your friends when they are thinking about what you're doing, and the fact that you are impacting lives in such a profound way. Like the fact that you are grateful and that you're inspiring gratitude in other people's lives is so inspiring in general. And I think that it's wonderful to see that some people that are maybe hopeless get to have firstly a bit of hope and actually get to change their lives ultimately, right? You told me a little bit about someone that was able to recover and was able to get on with his life and get married and everything. Do you want to tell a bit the story?
Sure. So I think I have a few, Facebook is amazing. So you can, kind of track people even if you're not seeing them on a daily basis. And so I have a few patients. My hospital also has a graduate picnic every September. So we have people who come back 5-10 years after their injury. And they're completely different people. They're people who we see them and they, maybe they're confused and agitated, or they can't walk and they're in a wheelchair, they can't communicate. And then, down the road, their independence is back, even if they're different. And I think that's one of the most important things when we talk about trying to use the gratitude journal. It's acknowledging that you have a new, and we have to, shape it. And part of that can be, being thankful for what's still working and what's getting you through this tough time, which I think is important too, is that when we're down at a low point, being able to say, you know what, I'm so glad my friend brought me some soup. It sounds so simple, but it's an opportunity for someone to, be thankful for a little thing. And that's what I would say is, when I talk about the gratitude journal, that's been the most influential, is not only for my patients, but I was just talking about this with friends. I was out last night having some drinks with some mom friends of mine. And I was talking about the journal, and just, even people who are working, doing great, kids are great, job is great. We get hung up on these things that are bringing us down. And that's been hugely, another positive effect of the journal is sort of saying, even if I had some stresses, I'm so grateful that, I had a great walk with a friend, or, I had a great experience with a patient today. They said his sound for the first time, they couldn't do that, and I made that happen. So it's, it's these, I think anyone can benefit, my patients, especially, because they're going through such a tough time, but even my friends who, are getting hung up on little stupid things. We're always wanting more. I think part of it is that gratitude kind of lets you say, like, I'm grateful for what's here right now and what I have. Whatever else comes forward is a plus, a bonus. But right now I'm okay. Everything I have is enough for me.
Exactly. I love this idea. And I think it's so important, because I've been in the situation of wanting more and always looking forward to something in the future that will make me happy, or that will happen. And when that will happen, everything will be amazing. And it just doesn't happen that way. You might get to that level and you might feel amazing for a while, but feeling amazing on the way is so much better.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that you said about your friends that they might be complaining for small things and things like this. I think your experience with your patients really puts things into perspective. Like when you have a problem and you compare it with their problem,
No comparison.
Exactly. You realize how small or insignificant, or how much it's not actually worth it to spend time and energy on that problem when you can be grateful that, like you said before we got recording, that we are able to breathe, to walk, to talk, to let us know a little bit about how you feel is their experience, your patient's experience. You said something about the fact that we are able now to talk, to think, to walk, and for them, at one point, that stopped working.
Mm-hmm. So when I see my patients, they've just come in from being totally, usually independent, working, driving, parenting, being a spouse, a friend, whatever, living their life. And now they're in the hospital and they've lost a significant amount of function. And it's stuff that, is half the body. It's an arm that can't move. It's a leg that won't work. It's, speech that doesn't sound clear, words that don't come out. And so it's obviously understandable and part of the rehab process, which is to identify what's lost. And we want that because we need them to be able to then kind of move forward. My job is to really be able to point out what they still have. And sometimes even things like breathing can be a good stress reliever. It can be a good way to manage anxiety because, what a scary situation to be without some of your basic functions. So I'm able to sort of stop them when things are getting really rough and say, let's take a deep breath. And it's usually something they can do. or let's listen to some music because hearing is typically well preserved. And so it's sort of saying what is a preserved function that you still have, and how can we use that right now to get you through this tough time? And sometimes it's those little things. So it's not even the journaling. Let's say it's someone who can't even, we're not at that point yet, but it's just sort of being able to stop in the moment and use that mindfulness technique to sort of say, here's what I have, here's what I have control over. And I'm going to just take a moment to do that activity and then get myself back on with whatever the activity is we're trying to do. So it is very much kind of checking in with yourself and with your body. And I even do that, when I'm in the car, I live outside of Washington, D.C. We have horrible traffic here. And I commute, like an hour each way to work. And I'm sitting in this traffic and I'm so frustrated. And the one thing I do is I just return back to taking a deep breath. It's like, this is what I have control over in this moment. Let me be grateful that my car is working. I have gas in my tank. I'm almost halfway there. So it's a really nice way to reframe a difficult perspective. And I find that is useful for patients, for, myself. I even do it for my kids. Kids want stuff all the time. They see something else, they don't know a lot about gratitude. So I'm always very mindful of sort of saying, we have enough, this would be maybe nice to have, but maybe we don't need it. Maybe we don't need it. And if they're frustrated about something, to say, you know what, let's go for a walk. Let's be outside. Let's be grateful that our house is warm and our legs are working. And that's very important for me to make sure that my children have a good sense of this, more important than my patients, because I hope that my patients can get it from other sources. But as a mom raising children, the gratitude lessons I have learned, I am deeply passionate about pushing forward towards them.
Exactly. I believe that it's such an important life skill to have. And like you said, it's something that we can control. Okay, we can't control the traffic. We can't control other exterior things, but we can control where our focus is. We can control how much gratitude we choose to see and to feel. And that actually controls our happiness. So this is the beautiful part, that even though you don't have everything in this world, you can still be happy and you can still be grateful. And I think this is very important. And especially if you, the listener, you are right now in maybe a difficult situation, you could think about all of these things that are working in your life, like the fact that you can speak, that you can hear us right now, that you can walk, that you can do things that people that have been working or that are in Lauren's care might not be able to do yet, at least. And I think this is quite important, because they didn't believe that at one point they will be without that. And most probably they didn't take too much time to appreciate the fact that they are able to do all of these things. But most probably, unfortunately, now every little thing is a big thing for them. And the things that we do very easily for them is something very big. So I think this helps us put things into perspective and see the whole picture, not just the problems that we have that we're dealing with right now, right?
Absolutely. It's easy to be grateful for these very basic bodily functions that we have, walking and eating and thinking, when you see it, taken away from people. But I would encourage people who are listening to the podcast to be able to say, in addition, it's okay to acknowledge what is wrong or what you're not happy with. And that's what I was saying. The journal has been so helpful for me because I can, in addition to being grateful for the little things, it's also very helpful to sort of write down or somehow verbalize, what is frustrating for you. Because I think, again, it helps to, solidify your thoughts on it. And can maybe even help you develop a plan, or at least acknowledge that something is bothering you. If you sort of feel it in your heart or your head, to write it down really gives it a little bit more substance. So it's sort of the combined act of acknowledging what's bothering you and then taking the time to be grateful for one or two things. It's sort of that 1-2 combo at the end of my day that really helps me to process what I'm worried about, and then move the things I'm grateful for to the forefront. And it feels so good. It really helps me to just process what's wrong, and I sleep really well because I've sort of acknowledged that and put it out there. And so I think it's easier said than done. And I don't want people to think, oh, I don't have any problems because I can walk around and breathe. It's okay to acknowledge the problems, but it's also important to recognize what you do have. It's a balance.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Gratitude often comes from asking for help and receiving it. Our struggles are easier to overcome when we get some help, and so we get to experience more gratitude as well. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is, therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help, or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and the Gratitude Podcast listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Georgian. That's betterhelp.com/Georgian. Exactly. I totally agree. And I think it's very important actually to leave our emotions to express them one way or another, because if we do, we will actually be able to have a wider range of emotions when it comes to the positive ones as well. If we repress them, it's not so good for us. And when it comes to actually experiencing gratitude and happiness and joy, that might be repressed as well. So I totally agree with Lauren, and I think that it's a very important part. What I was saying before was the fact that it's important to have the perspective and to not just focus on those negatives, but to see the whole picture that this can add to our life. But I'm really curious, Lauren, if you want to share with us, what's your secret? Like, how did you manage to take on this habit and do it for 5 years? I think it's amazing.
It is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
A friend told me about a journal that at the time was called O Life. It doesn't exist anymore, but she had been doing it, and she kind of liked it. She was going through a tough time at that time, and she said, you should try it out. And so I started doing it, and I think the fact that technologically, you can create a profile, and it sort of automatically reminds you to write in it. I check my email, as most of us do, all the time. Mm-hmm. And so, it was always in my inbox. I set it at a time to come in, once my day was kind of winding down. And initially, I would write in it sometimes, and other times I wouldn't. Now I use one called maildiary.net. And with Mail Diary, it will tell you what you wrote last, and it'll tell you what you wrote a year ago. And it was only through sort of seeing those last posts that I realized how much I loved that reflection and that ability to remember little things, funny things my kids said, or, a really great lunch I had. Maybe, I like to cook. So something that I made that really came out well, I'll journal about that. And then being able to read about it is very reinforcing. And when I get an entry and it says, here's what you wrote a year ago, and there's nothing there, I'm like, why didn't I write? What was happening? Where was I? How come I didn't do that? And so I don't like it, because I've enjoyed seeing over the years kind of the things that I tend to write about, the things I tend to be grateful for. It's very fulfilling to read about it. So that really reminds me every night. And I actually look forward to it. Mine comes in at 8:00 at night. I actually will, go on, even if I'm not really using my email, I'll go on and I'll do it before, I go to bed at night, because it's so wonderful to be able to look back. And also, like I was saying earlier, to be able to process what happened in your day, something that you think about, at the end of the day, what did I do that was really good? How did I help someone today? Or how did someone help me? What am I grateful for in a friend, or something that I'm proud of in my children? To acknowledge those things, to write about them, it really gives them a lot more, like I was saying, substance. It really makes more permanent something that otherwise might just, flit away and be gone, and we don't really remember it at all. So the journal has been something, and it's really an accumulation of time. But I think the fact that the tech is there to just automatically, it's not a book I have to go to and remember to do. It's part of a thing that I'm already doing all day long. And some people have said, where is it going? How do you know that it's secure? And I say, well, I don't know how anything is secure really, but what I'm putting out there is something I would want anyone to know. These are the things that are frustrating for me. These are the things that I'm feeling grateful for. These are the things that made me happy today. Go ahead and hack into that. No problem.
Exactly.
That's information that I'm proud to put out there. I'm hoping it remains confidential, obviously, but it's information that for me has been something that in writing about it, I'm also emoting it, in conversations. So it's nothing that is, super secret, but it's definitely something I'm more conscientious of and good at. Expressing gratitude is something that has taken practice, and that has
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And what I think is great, and it has been my experience as well doing this, is that it changes your perspective on your life. Because when you think about how your life is, it's a perspective. It's how you see it. And sometimes you think you have the best life when you're feeling great. Sometimes you feel that you have the worst life, maybe when you're feeling really down and depressed. But what this does is it actually helps you change your perspective each and every day. And that's what I have been experiencing, and what I love about doing this, especially before going to bed, that I see my day and my life in a positive light. And it gives me a great feeling about my life and how I'm living, and about the beautiful things that are happening in my life, even though they are small, right? Like, I'm sure that you don't have big things each day to write in your gratitude journal.
Oh yeah. In fact, they're almost exclusively small things. I mean, I can think of, things that I've done professionally that have been, a big deal, a promotion, or speaking in front of a large audience. Those are things that are sort of exciting, but it's really, it's the little tiny things. And a lot of it for me is interactions that I've had with my family and my friends. It's good food that I eat, or it's, a place that I went, like a park that was really beautiful. It's sort of an appreciation for what's around you. And that's been hugely important, because it's part of that mindfulness, right? So instead of being focused on, what I don't have or what I need to do, it's sort of taking time to appreciate what's just right in front of you. Something that's going to make you feel good, something that's going to, just sort of help you refocus. And that's been a huge piece of it for me.
Exactly. And I don't know if you know, there is this book, Hardwiring Happiness. It actually is based on science, and it goes around the idea of the fact that we can actually rewire our brain by focusing on the positive experiences that we have, and really taking them in. Because in my experience as well, so things happen in the day, but I have to move to the other thing that requires my attention. And even though I might be happy in the background, I have to focus on what I'm doing. And another comes up, and all kinds of different things happen, and I might forget that that amazing thing happened, even if it's not a big thing, even if it's a small thing. And doing this each day is so helpful to see, to remember the beautiful things that have happened. And another thing that I think is amazing about what you just said is the fact that most of them are little things. And I believe that our life is made much more of little things than of huge things. Like, for instance, let's say you want to become a millionaire. You only become a millionaire once. And the things that lead to that, let's say, happen for, I don't know, maybe 5 years until you get to reach that level. And appreciating these little things, they are much more often and bring us much more joy than achieving a big thing one particular time in the future.
Certainly. And actually, I'm so glad you mentioned the hardwiring for happiness, because that actually ties back into what I do as a speech pathologist in working with patients with neurological injuries. Is there's this whole concept of neuroplasticity, which is that your brain can rewire itself, exactly like you're saying. And what it takes is something called massed practice. So, you do something once, the brain does not develop a pathway for that. But if you do it over and over and over again, then you start to get these permanent connections and synapses in the neurons. And so it has, been my experience, having had obviously no neurological injury, but having instilled in my daily life a practice of doing something consistently, that I have really noticed a positive change. And it's been in my outlook. And I'm a happy person anyway, but I think we all get bogged down by stuff. Especially nowadays, the world is so volatile. It is so easy to feel, just the heaviness of it all. But I think because I had been doing such a diligent practice of doing the journaling and talking about the journal to friends and family, that I have made for myself a new pathway that, allows me to switch over to my gratitude mode when things are getting heavy. And I think, again, it took practice to wire my brain that way. And that's where I tell my patients, this is something that offers you a daily opportunity to work on something that you want to get better at. And that is what all the neurological science is telling us, is that our brain has capacity to change, even in the setting of an injury. That as long as we're doing something consistently, things can happen.
I love it. And I think this can be very useful for our listeners. If you may not be the happiest person, or you might actually have brain patterns that you've learned or you've practiced for quite a lot of time, that lead you to different kinds of negative feelings. Also, you shouldn't worry about that, because we, from what I know, we are wired to focus on the threats, on the things that might hurt us one way or another. And but the beautiful thing is that we can rewire our brain, like Lauren said, and she she knows what she's talking about. She didn't just read a book like I did. She actually knows how these things work, and I think this is amazing. And it's the way we practice these kinds of things that actually have a big impact. And I think they have a big impact on the long term. And that's why I really believe in gratitude as being a lifelong skill, that once you learn it and you cultivate the habit, it actually gets you to the point of actually changing your life and having an amazing life, even though things still might happen, bad things or challenges. You still have them, but the fact that you have this power to get back to gratitude, I think it's one of the biggest blessings that you can give yourself.
I would would also say that, when you take this attitude of, it's a quote that you see around, gratitude is taking what you have and making it enough. I think that a gratitude mindset allows you to be really resourceful. So instead of looking and saying what you don't have, what don't I don't have this, I don't have that. Gratitude says, all right, what's around me? What do I have? What can I tap into? And I have found both professionally and personally, when I'm able to really acknowledge and utilize what I already have, I can be very effective. And so it's sort of acknowledging the resources that I have near me are going to be enough to get me through this. Maybe you have to go and get something else. You have to seek someone's help, or you need to buy something, whatever. But I think it's that mindset of saying, I have the tools, I have the ability to do this. I just have to figure out how to do it.
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned this. I believe that you're an amazing example for your patients, because you are doing what you recommend them to do, like the gratitude journaling, and that this happens. The fact that you can rewire your brain, because you're living it and that you're doing it. And it's the same situation with me. I'm in Romania, and gratitude has helped me to be resourceful enough to create something, I think, of value for the world, even though I'm way far away from the States or Australia or the UK, where most people are listening to this podcast. And for instance, the internet connection is usually great here. So I used the resources that I have had to create something that I really believe in, even though I'm not in the States or somewhere that where some of these things are much easier to put together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that you went into this direction with resourcefulness, because I really believe that gratitude helps us see the resources and not focus on the limitations that we have, and actually see the resources that we do have, and the things that we can do in our current situation. And this is very important in so many instances.
Yeah. We here in the States, we've had so many, natural disasters over the fall and the summer. And, you hear it time and time again, these people who lose everything, somehow these little stories trickle out in the news, or if you know someone who knows someone who's there, it's people who I think have that frame of mind that gratitude can promote, which is being grateful that they're alive, being thankful that they have whatever limited things are still available, and then using that to kind of move forward. I can't help but think that gratitude is a big piece of that, why people are able to rebuild and survive these, tragic losses. I think another thing about gratitude is that when you express gratitude, I think it changes the people around you as well.
Definitely.
I like to talk about my husband who, I think mentally, as you were saying, his brain tends to focus on, what's negative. And that could be just a trait of his, in addition to just being a normal human thing. But I always like to counter with, whatever's, the negative, I always try to come back at the positive. Mm-hmm. And I like to think that I've had a positive effect on his sort of outlook of things. And he's very successful. He's a very happy person. But again, I think it's that act of those little things, being able to project gratitude, even if it's, terribly rainy and we had, a bad commute home, let's be thankful that our house is warm and cozy and we're dry. So I think it's putting it out there, hopefully can change sort of the chemistry of the people around you. And that in turn can make people more effective to work together.
Exactly. I love it. And I truly believe every word that you're saying. And it's exactly what I feel as well when it comes to gratitude.
Excellent.
So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here with us. before we go, I have a couple of questions. One is, what are you grateful for right now? Who are the people in your life that you're grateful for that you would like to mention?
Oh, wow. I am always grateful for friends. I think friends for me are, sort of the daily fabric of my being, and they're people who, bring me a lot of joy. My children and my husband also, bring me tremendous, sense of happiness. And they are the ones with which I am able to exercise my gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I'm spending, I do, get together with friends, and we spend a lot of good quality time as a family together. I have, in getting better at expressing gratitude over the years, that's the place where I can do those things. And people are always a little bit surprised, not my family, because of course they're used to this by now, but, friends where I say, I'm so grateful for your friendship, to be able to put it out there. I had a best friend who passed away when I was in my 20s. I was just about to get married, and she had battled leukemia for 4 years. And all of a sudden she was gone, and she was she was like my best friend. And so it was, a low point where I was able to really, it was very sad for me, but over the years, she's been gone now 13 years. I am so grateful for, friends, because, they do make us smile and laugh, and they acknowledge our successes. And so it was really going through that loss and processing that, that I was able to learn to tell people, no matter who they are, that I love them, that I am grateful for their friendship, that I enjoy them. I don't know that we say that to people. We might feel it, but it was only when I really lost somebody that I was able to realize that you don't know how much time you have. And with my patients, it's the same thing. I'm so grateful for them as a model for me, whether they want it to be or not, that you need to be thankful for things on a daily basis, because you never know when things will change. In a heartbeat, someone is gone, or something that you were able to do really well is no longer within your grasp. And so if that happens, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it, but it really is so important that you acknowledge the importance of those abilities, of those people. And so it's really, something that I think is really important for people to remember. Just acknowledge the people around you that you love, that make you happy. Could be coworkers, could be neighbors, just to say, I really appreciate you. And I'm so thankful for what you do for me in my life.
Exactly. I love it. It's a great way to end this interview. I really appreciate you and what you shared with us today. Where can our audience find you? Where can our audience get in contact with you?
So I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter. Lauren Schwabish is how you can find me. I don't have a huge social media presence. I tend to, live in the moment and not spend a lot of time online. But I'm located in McLean, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for what you shared with us today, and for your enthusiasm for gratitude. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a super enjoyable task. I'm grateful for the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to our weekly podcast. Help us reach our goal of inspiring 100,000 people by sharing this podcast with your loved ones, with your Facebook friends. And if you loved this episode, please write a review on iTunes.